What's going on, everybody? We're back. It's a Sooners Illustrated podcast, episode 29 on this Monday, October 23rd, 2023. The numbers are getting too high for you guys. Josh Callaway, Tom Green, James D. Jackson. It's Monday. It's a game breakdown day. Oklahoma survived a scare against UCF on Saturday on homecoming weekend. Gentlemen, obviously it was a little dicey. How are we feeling moving forward? We got another road game coming up this week. Just what's the overall vibe right now for you guys as we move deeper into this season?
That was a weird game.
Very.
I don't know. Like, Oklahoma obviously never really found its rhythm offensively until the fourth quarter there. But UCF, outside of like two big plays, it just felt like they weren't doing much either. We'll get more into that and how Oklahoma did against that, third-ranked rushing offense. But yeah, it was just a strange game. Obviously, it's a game Oklahoma probably loses a year ago. One that Brent Venables said that last year's team probably was not equipped to pull out, but this team did it. And, they're not all going to be masterpieces. You're not going to want to hang them all in the Louvre, but they won, and that's the important thing this time of year. You beat your big rival, and now you're just got to take care of business the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's like what I said Saturday, like Tom just said. It's just, every game's not going to be perfect. So just being able to pull that out still shows what a good team is, because UCF had a lot of things going for them coming into that game, having the quarterback back that gets them re-energized for the game. They're going against the top team in the Big 12, the team that's been dominating the Big 12 for a long time. They're newcomers. So it's so much motivation for them. They're on the road. They're in OU's home stadium. So there's a lot that they had going for them that they really wanted to overcome. And so that gives you a lot of boost, especially in football, which is more of a emotional and effort type of game. That gave them a lot of things going. So you got to give a little credit to UCF as well. But OU did not play their best game, as we said. It wasn't their best at all. And It was strange because across college football landscape, a lot of the top teams had some close games, some close calls. Had me up until 2 a.m. watching Washington play and things like that. So
Same.
It was just a weird week of college football, not only with OU, but other teams around the nation as well.
Yeah. North Carolina blew chunks everywhere at home to one win Virginia. Ugh. Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's something to be said about not playing your best and still finding a way to get it done.
Yeah.
You're going to have to be able to do that. If you're going to get through the whole season without a loss, which is really hard to do, you're going to have weeks where you're not firing all cylinders. You got to find a way to survive it. That's what Oklahoma did on Saturday. They survived it. Do you have something, Tom?
And not having Tolly Walker out there, obviously, that
sure.
We made our predictions before we knew the entirety of the unit. I mean, we knew OU was going to have some offensive line adjustments with McKay still out. We knew that Nick Anderson was going to have to step up for Andrew Anthony, but we didn't know that Tolly Walker wasn't going to be there. And that's the guy you kind of want in that situation against a team that doesn't do very well against the run. I mean, that's UCF. They don't defend the run very well. And so you want to have one of your best backs out there, and this didn't work out that way. And then Marcus Major, obviously, he was dealing with a shoulder injury, so he wasn't 100% healthy out there. And Gavin Salt just got started very slow in that game. It was not something that Jeff Lebby thought would happen, is what he said after the post game. But he just, as the game went on, he got much better, and it worked out for him, especially in the fourth quarter, as Tom said. The offense really got going because Gavin Sawchuk found his rhythm and was able to, get more yards here and there. So it worked out for him.
Yeah, they could not run the ball effectively for 3+ quarters against one of the worst rushing defenses in the country. Part of that is obviously not having Tolly Walker, who was serving an in-house suspension but should be back this week. Part of it was your offensive line's a little bit mixed and matchy there. You had Caden Breen playing at left guard. You had Savion Byrd and Caleb Schaefer splitting time at right guard. But also you just don't have a reliable running back situation right now, especially with your lead guy missing. Marcus Major had a hard time getting things going. He finished with 18 carries for 82 yards. Gavin Sawchuk got his first career start, but really, like James said, got off to a slow start. I mean, he mishandled a Wildcat snap. He dropped a third down wide open pass from Dylan Gabriel on that first drive. Didn't really do anything until those final two drives. I believe 56 of his 63 yards came on Oklahoma's final two drives. through the first 3 quarters, Oklahoma only ran for 115 yards on, like 29 carries, averaged like 4 yards per carry. In the fourth quarter alone, they had like 89 yards rushing. Certainly on those last 2 drives, really, is when they just were able to get things going. And a lot of that was, Gus Malzahn said UCF's defense got worn down a little bit late. Some of it was, Oklahoma just, starting to find some rhythm. And, maybe that's something they can build toward moving forward, especially with the way Gavin Sawchuk kind of finally settled in. This is the most substantial playing time he's gotten since that Cheez-It Bowl against FSU. But, man, the running game was just bad for better part of this game. I thought it was kind of funny because, I don't know if you guys remember, but, right before the start of Big 12 play, Brent Venables was talking about, this team needing to be able to line it up and run it when the time came, when teams knew that they were going to run it, when everybody in the stadium knew they were going to run it. And this really felt like the first time all season that finally, like, that moment came in the fourth quarter there, those last 2 drives. So there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, I mean, when the time they really needed it, they got it. They got themselves together and ran the ball really well. Just at the beginning, it was just weird because it was a couple of times where Jalil Farouk and Drake Stoops and Gavin Freeman lined up in the backfield as running backs. They didn't have a running back out there. Kind of just went with the receivers. And I think Farouk actually got a handoff. Stoops did too. Got a handoff.
Freeman definitely did.
Yeah. And ran the ball from that position. So that's strange. You knew that OU was, down on backs at that situation when that happened. I think that was in the first half when that occurred. So weird stuff going on. But you look at the stats, I mean, it looks like they ran the ball a lot better than they did. Because if you watch the full game, you know exactly what we're talking about. You can't just look at the stat sheet. The beginning of that game was pretty rough on the run game. And they got better as the game went on, which is kind of what you want to see in that situation, being able to run the ball late. So that helped out a lot. And you spoke on it, Tom. UCF's defense kind of got tired. That's where that competitive depth comes in that Brendan Venables was talking about. He's not the team that has a situation now to where his team's going to get tired at the end because they have to play so many snaps with the same guys that they just fall apart at the end of the game. OU was able to overcome that. They've had all these injuries and still been able to have guys come out there and still be productive, as we talked about with Nick Anderson, guys like that, and just coming in and being the guy they need to be. So, good win for OU. Good win, especially with all the circumstances that were going on.
Yeah, it's funny. I think outside of those last 2 drives in the fourth quarter, I'm not talking about the kneel downs after the stop 2-point conversion, but those last 2 scoring drives, it felt like the only time that Oklahoma was able to find any sort of success in the run game was late in the first half. I think it was that touchdown drive right before they gave up the long score. Marcus Major started to get going. You saw him pick up, 5-6 yards at a time, and they moved downfield pretty efficiently that drive and scored. But yeah, it's just they need to find a way to run the ball more consistently over the second half of this season. They've managed to this point, but at some point they're going to need to just find something reliable there. Like Brent Venables said, run through trash, find ways to get those yards when they might not be there.
Yeah, no, for sure. Watching the game back this morning, because I get a little different perspective from when I'm on the field. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was, but when you take in consideration the opponent, because like we said, going into the weekend, UCF statistically one of the worst rush defenses in the country, you would hope for more. Now, like James said, it kind of extenuating circumstances. Ty Walker was out, Marcus Major's banged up. It was good to see them get it going in the fourth. Obviously, Sawchuk hit the big touchdown run. Maybe that's the start of something. I just, from the most simplistic level, I just, for me, and you guys can speak on it as well, it feels like the running backs just need to play better. Because I can't tell you how many times, and I'll talk about Saturday in particular, because that's obviously the game we're breaking down. I can't tell you how many times it felt like on the field, from my vantage point, I thought Oakland was about to break a big run. I see a lane opening, a gap, and it's like, ooh, and then it doesn't happen because the running back, whoever it is, Major or Sawchuk or somebody else, just doesn't really hit the hole clearly. They need to make one guy miss to break a big one, and they don't do it. That kind of thing seems to be happening a lot. And not that I don't think these guys are talented or anything. I mean, coming into the year, we talked about how unbelievably deep this group was. Now, obviously, injuries have hindered that. But still, even so, you would think that, they'd be doing a little more effective stuff on the ground than they are right now. So I don't know. I think the offensive line overall is doing fine. They're certainly pass protecting very well, but the running backs need to kind of just step it up. And maybe we saw a little bit of that, in the fourth quarter of this game where Major and Sawchuk both kind of got it going a little bit. And we'll see if it carries over into this weekend. Obviously that, and moving into the back half of the season, that remains to be seen, obviously. So,
yeah, definitely. Injuries have just played a big part of it. I mean, I think that's a big case.
Which Patawi's not hurt, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, he's out, but that's basically. It's the same. It's just like they've dealt with so many injuries in that group, and the expectations we had for him. I mean, we can't really hold him to that with all everything that they've been going through. Gavin not being out there a lot of time with his hamstring, and Javonte Barnes. We really haven't seen much of him since the first two games. Just him being healthy. He's dealing with the injury as well that. Brent Venom was kind of hinted to. They never really tell you exactly what it is when we ask for those that want to know why. We don't know that. They kind of keep those things on the wraps. That's how it goes for them. It's just we don't really know for sure, but we know that they're hurt, and we knew that Marcus Major was dealing with something as well. Just seeing that. I mean, it was kind of the talk around. I think Josh, you were down there when you heard about Marcus Major's shoulder before the game. I mean, they were talking about it on the field, and that kind of got up to us in the press box. It's just. They've dealt with some injuries there. It's hindered a lot of what they wanted to do. Now, I think given the circumstances, they've done a pretty good job. Let's not be too bleak and say that the running back unit is just terrible and that's not the situation. It's just they've had so many injuries that they can't be 100%. They can't be up to their standard right now.
Yeah. Now, as far as the rest of the offense goes, I felt like there's times where they missed Angelo Anthony in this game. It felt like they weren't able to stretch the field to quite the same level, although Nick Anderson continues to be insane. 2 more touchdowns for him. He's at 8.
Every other catch seems like. Every other catch.
Marvin Mims, I took this yesterday. Marvin Mims set the freshman record in 2020 with 9. Big 12 freshman record. Nick Anderson's got 8. Now, that was in a COVID-shortened season, which is what made that Mims record extra impressive.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was a shortened season, but Anderson's at 8 right now, and he's still got a few weeks to go before he gets to that. Yeah, before he gets to that COVID season number. Pretty insane what he's doing. So he's clearly their best deep threat, down the field, big play weapon. Jalil Farouk was moderately effective. Drake Stoops had a very big game, especially in the kind of the second half when the chips were down. It was like, okay, Oklahoma needs drives. Like, this is getting dire. Drake Stoops came through with several big plays. Gabriel played all right. Not his best game, not his worst game. Ran the ball a little bit, had a few timely scrambles. How do you guys kind of just, I guess, overall kind of grade out what the offense did in this game? Because that's like we just said, didn't run the ball very well. Kind of a long stretch in the middle of this game where they were stuck on 17 points. I mean, the third quarter they couldn't get anything going. They found it late when they needed to. Where do you kind of come out of this feeling about Jeff Levy's side of the ball kind of overall as it continues to be up and down? They've had games where they look unstoppable and games where it looks clunky and not very good at all. Where are you feeling right now after this latest kind of weird game for them?
I think Dylan Gabriel had another solid game. I mean, he had a better completion percentage than he did in the Texas game. Didn't have as many yards, 253 yards, but still 3 touchdowns, the 1 interception, which again, that's a pass that Drake Stoops usually and should make. I mean, that went right off of him and just kind of caromed into a defender's hands. But, it was another solid performance from Dylan Gabriel. He just stays even keel all the time. He had to scramble a little bit more than I think we've seen him do. I think he had 4 official scrambles. Offensive line, had its moments, but they're a little bit shaky in this one. I mean, they gave up a season-high 3 sacks. And then, like I said, Dylan had to scramble a few more times than probably they're used to him doing because they've been doing a lot of design runs or option runs with him. But yeah, I think it was just something about this offense, this game, it was just off. They clearly missed Andrew Anthony, like you said, not having that, kind of not just a deep threat, but I think he's their most complete receiver overall. Like he's been a guy that they've been able to get some intermediate stuff into, and certainly a guy that Dylan Gabriel had a lot of trust in. They had a good rapport. He saw a good, healthy amount of targets. But, kind of as we expected, Nick Anderson stepped up into that role at the outside receiver spot. And, he led all wide receivers in snaps with 78. That's a career high for him. He had a career high in targets with 9, career high in receptions with 5, another 100-yard game, 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's kind of what you expect from Nick Anderson at this point as he continues to kind of grow into this role. I think we saw a little bit more LV Bunkley Shelton than we expected. Jaquez Petway got in there for a couple snaps early on, but then didn't really see the field after that. But yeah, it was just kind of a clunky offensive game. And I think a lot of it starts with just that inability to establish the run early on and missing your best wide receiver.
Yeah,
it wasn't the same. This is the thing. Personnel wise, it wasn't the same offense that played against Texas. I mean, if you look at that offense and the guys that are out there, we talked about it. The offensive line, the running backs, the wide receivers, they all have a different guy out there now, trying to fit in and trying to find a new role. And so that you give credit to OU for figuring it out. That's what I would say. We don't want to sound too bleak. They figured it out with what they had on the field, and now they have a week to build on that. So UCF was a good opponent to kind of figure that out and get everything notched down. So now you have another week going into a very good team against Kansas, and you got to figure, you got to really keep the momentum going now, especially what you saw in that fourth quarter. Maybe that's what we'll see from now on. They figure things out. And I mean, I like when we talk about Dylan Gabriel. I said on Saturday in our immediate recap, it's one of those things we just go on the field and just react. And I said he may not have had a Heisman type of game. When you look at the rest of the college football landscape, I mean, it looks like he pretty much did, because I mean he was one of the better quarterbacks in the country when you look at the guys that are going after the Heisman this year. So I want to backtrack on that. Dylan Gabriel played a very good game, and I think the stats and look at everything he did, I mean, it looks a lot better than what some of the guys that are going for the Heisman did last week. I mean, did last week as well. So that's good for Gabriel. I like this offense when he scrambles and opens up and scrambles. I think it adds an extra dynamic to it, and I like to see that more as we get more into the season.
Yeah, I was a little surprised we didn't see a few more designed runs for Dylan, especially with Oklahoma going into this game, knowing that it would be without Tawi, knowing that UCF's run defense isn't really great. I thought we might see a little bit more from him in that regard. But, they just tried to stick with Gavin Sawchuk, tried to stick with Marcus Major. Obviously, Jalil Farouk, I think he lined up in the backfield on 10 different snaps, got 3 carries. We saw Drake and Gavin back there too. It really just felt like a piecemeal effort with the run game. But I mean, yeah, like I said, there's something to be said for the fact that they were able to come on late in the fourth quarter. Like, you look at last year's team, so many times they faded in the fourth quarter of games. This team just again and again, whether it was this game, whether it's a Texas game, SMU, even Cincinnati, like they just come on strong in the fourth quarter and kind of create that separation. And even if it's not pretty, they just kind of grind out these ugly wins when they need to.
Yeah. I mean, you're 2-0 in one-score games now. Obviously, that was a big issue last year. 0-5 one-score games. You're 2-0 now. You can't accuse Jeff Lebby of certainly of being willing to abandon the run, continue to stick with it. We saw it against SMU as well. Felt very similar to that game. The main thing you can say right now on the positive side, from my vantage point about the offense, is that they're not going to blink. They're not going to panic. I was impressed with that, especially you get into the fourth quarter of this game. They're still sitting on 17 points. They got the touchdown early to Nick Anderson. They finished the half strong with those 10 points right before halftime. But other than that, they hadn't really done anything, but they still just looked like we're going to be fine. And Dylan Gabriel, I think now in back-to-back games, obviously we all know what happened in the Cotton Bowl and this weekend. Chips are down. We need points desperately right now. They've come through. So there's some confidence to be taken from that if you're an Oklahoma fan, that when the chips are down, big moment. That stadium was tense. It was a 6-point lead for UCF in the start of the fourth quarter, and UCF actually had the ball. Oklahoma got a big stop there that they need to have. We'll talk about the defense in just a minute, but there's a lot of reason to think and feel confident in these close game scenarios, because that was something through the first 5 weeks. They were just dominating teams that you didn't really have to see yet. Like when the nerves are tight and things are getting a little tense out here, how are they going to respond to it? Obviously, flying colors passed in the Texas game, and more of the same this weekend when it was really looking a little dicey for a bit. So, overall, not the offense's best day, but we've seen that they'll have stretches where they don't look like everything's working real great. They'll come back next week. They'll probably go into Lawrence this weekend and hang 60 on Kansas, and nobody would blink. It's going to be kind of that kind of year for this group right now so far as we
and certainly you don't expect the team to score every time they get the ball, but it's not like they
Hey Tom, hey.
It's not like they struggled completely offensively. I mean, they got down in the red zone a few times, and it's just they came away with no points because
they missed some field goals.
They missed some field goals.
Yeah.
And we'll get
there.
on special teams later, but let's look over to the defense.
Like I said, I mean, it's just OU fans are just so used. Tom, they used to
nobody scores every time downfield, James. Nobody.
They used to get really close to it. That's all I'm gonna say. It was that situation, and that's why fans like we see this now, and it's just like, well, I don't know, like is the offense good, you know? And then you look at the stats, and they're like top 10 in the country. So you gotta kind of reel it back into reality. You know, you're basically like a regularly high powered offense, not just a historically great offense like OU fans have seen in a long time. You know, that's the difference now, and so that's where it comes out to. I mean, OU outrushed UCF. UCF is number 3 coming in the nation in rushing, and they were able to outrush them. We talked about how bad the rushing looked, but they still did that. And I think this says a lot about the defense too. So we'll see what goes on in that.
Yeah, but they still finished with fewer rushing yards than UCF is averaged allowing this season. So it's not like they were they're smashing.
Sure.
But
no, as we kind of flip over, look at what the defense did. The story of this game really kind of overall was the inability to run the football for both teams, because we came in saying that UCF's got this great rushing attack, number 3 in the country, and the rush defense stinks. Should be a lot of running the ball for both teams potentially in this game. OU couldn't run the ball. UCF couldn't run the ball. Outside of a couple of big runs. I mean, they only finished.
They had that 56-yarder that set up their first touchdown.
Right. And even
outside of that, they had 95 yards on 40 carries.
Yeah.
Like I said, the defense
really bad.
The defense takes a lot of credit
between the tackles at all in this game. Oklahoma dominated in the trenches on that side of the football. 3.6 yards per carry for a UCF rush attack that's been so good. And again, that, like Tom just iterated there, that's with RJ Harvey breaking a 50-plus yarder in this game. You take that away,
without that,
it's looking real gross. Yeah, so really impressed with Oklahoma's rush defense in this game. The guys on the edges, Downs and Trace Ford, are both playing really well. It's really nice to see Trace Ford kind of coming around. We talked about it a lot, last year. So you guys weren't around then, but Brent Venables' defense is complicated. It takes a while to get your feet wet and kind of feel good about what you're doing. Feels like Trace Ford is getting there to that point right now. Obviously, getting toward the middle of his first year in Norman. But defensive line as a whole was great. Danny Stutzman again leads the team in tackles. He just, he's the consistent, just everywhere, making plays constantly. Jaron Kanik was good again in this game. Secondary was all right. Billy Bowman had some nice moments. How do you kind of feel about the defense overall? Obviously, there was a couple of big busts. The big touchdown before halftime, the 85-yard. That looked very, Tom, that looked very Nick Marshall at Auburn-y, that play, that Plumlee throw down the field. But overall, I mean, Gus Malzahn coached a good game. He was dialing some things up, but I think Oklahoma overall did all right handling it, and obviously got the big stop at the end when they needed to.
Yeah, I thought this quote from Brent Venables after the game was pretty telling. He said, that game had all the makings of a dominant performance on defense, but it wasn't. It started up front. They did really well at the pass rush. They got 3 sacks. We've seen that kind of gradually improve over the last few weeks. They got off to a real slow start this season, but over the last 3 games, they've got 10 sacks. They had 13 tackles for loss in this game. So they're doing good at getting in the backfield right now. But there were obviously a lot of concerns, lots of things to clean up for this defense after this performance. We talked about the 54-yard run. There's the 86-yard touchdown, which was just a breakdown by Woody Washington, who, committed to the run and to try to stop John Reese Plumlee, and this guy was wide open. And, it's probably another conversation of whether that touchdown should have counted or not because of the taunting before the score.
But not happy about that one.
Yeah,
there was lots to clean up, but lots of promise. And I think that's what Brent Venables liked the most about this game. Obviously, he was kind of ambivalent about the performance overall. He liked that they won, but also liked that when they go into practice today on Monday, he's going to have plenty to yell at them about in the right way.
Definitely. Yeah, like I said, the defense, they held up in their own. And it was more points that would have been off the board if, they had that goal line stand, right? It was, back-to-back after Texas, we could do another one. And Jaron Kanik gets that penalty, and then they score on the next play. And that kind of hurt him a lot because it should have been just 3 points or whatever it was. And that changed a lot of what the game was. I even asked Denny Stutzman about that. And he was like, I don't even count that as a goal line stand now because of they scored the next time because we had the penalty. So we're gonna figure that out and get things going from there. But to see the defense do that again, I mean, it just shows you it wasn't a fluke. Like these guys are good on the goal line. That might come back to a situation where they really need it, and they should be able to get it done. It gives you kind of some confidence going forward in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a goal line stand. they gave it a touchdown.
But that's what I'm saying. It was on third down, so they got the stop, and then Jaren kind of they were going to kick a field goal.
Yeah, but it wasn't. But in the end, it's not a goal line stand. I mean, it was a good effort for 3 plays, but Jaren Kanak just kind of lost his cool there, and he got popped for what Ethan Downs almost got popped for against Texas. And so I was a little surprised to see that, especially because just coming out of that game. A big discussion point was, oh, hey, Ethan, you got to kind of reel it back in there a little bit. So to come off that and then to have Jaren do the same thing and have it cost your team a touchdown in that situation was a little bit shocking, especially from a guy who's got so much experience in this defense at this point. And it's not like he's, getting thrown out there for the first time. Like he's played a lot of snaps. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised to see that.
Yeah. You mentioned it, the 86-yard touchdown right before half. Obviously, very gross.
That's another one. Yeah.
I mean, you give up an 86-yard play at any point, but especially right before half, you had just got the momentum back after Nick Anderson's second touchdown. Because it felt like after Nick got the end zone that second time, they went up 14-10 for half. It felt like, okay, Oklahoma's got their feet underneath them. They're going to probably be just fine in the second half of this game. And then you allow that, a just massive coverage bust and a gigantic play. But yeah, the blowing the kisses down the sideline. Obviously hilarious. First off, it's so college football, but then it was ruled taunting after the play. Brent Venables not a fan of it. And look, I don't like that rule that if you taunt, it would wipe out the touchdown. That's a dumb rule to me, but that's what happened. I mean, we've seen over the years touchdowns get wiped out because of guys taunting on their way to the end zone. Like that happens, a couple times a year. And if that is not that, he was at the 30-yard line. He started doing it. I don't know what is. So I think Brent Venables was rightfully, upset about that. But
and he said the official missed that and only caught the coordinated celebration in the end zone. Which, I mean, I don't know how you miss that when you're trailing the play the whole time.
Yeah, he was standing right. Yeah, he was right there. Yeah. So it is what it is. But yeah, we talked about it. So the defense, they give up that play. They give up after the goal line stop or whatever you want to call it, Tom. And then they have the fourth down play at the end of the game where they scored a touchdown on like 4th and 10 or whatever. I don't remember the measurement, but that last play of the game, they scored a touchdown. So there's 3 scores right there where you think maybe you could have done a lot better job, and this game looked a lot different, especially on the defensive end. So just like we said, the fact that they were able to get it out and Kendall was able to make the play that he did, the best play of his life is what he called it after when we talked to him. Yeah, it's still a good sign, even though they had all those breakdowns that were crucial and heartbreaking on like one play situations.
Yeah, allowing the 4th and 10 to cut it to 2, not good. Obviously, you had UCF dead to rights there, 4th and 10, game on the line. Let them pick it up, score a touchdown. But did they bounce back to stop the 2-pointer? After the Texas game, if you guys remember on that Monday, I said I just felt like Oklahoma was so prepared so many times. They just snuffed out plays. Gus Malzahn got him a few times, but on that 2-point, I mean, they were absolutely all over it. He tried to go to a kind of a double pass, which I actually didn't even realize in the moment. I'm in the complete other end zone, and I actually didn't realize in live that he was looking to pass until I watched it back. I was like, oh, he's looking down the field, and he had nowhere to go.
Which the thing is,
he only had one receiver on that side of the field with him, which, I mean, I just think that's a play design flaw in that case. You got to have a second option there for the running back to throw to. But I mean, credit to Kendall Dolby, credit to Billy Bowman and Woody Washington for the job they did on that play too, to cover up the one receiver in the end zone. Right. But they played fundamentally sound with the game on the line. They played disciplined football in that situation. And on a day where we saw a lack of discipline on several occasions for this defense, and frankly for the team as a whole in some spots, it was good to see them that when their back was against the wall, when it mattered most, in that make or break moment, they stuck to it.
And I think the way the coverage was too, like it would have took like a Heisman level quarterback throw to make it work. I think that was the issue there, because the running backs just doesn't have that confidence to do it. Now, granted, he should have threw it regardless. You got to give it a shot, because you're not going to get by the defense from where he was standing at.
Sure.
You just got to let it go, man.
Guys over there.
Yeah. Billy Bowman had the receiver blanketed, and then Woody Washington was kind of playing bracketed coverage there. Kind of came in a little bit and then faded back.
It's a tough throw to make. It's not
Oklahoma just play. I mean, they just covered it up. Oklahoma just covered up, left him with nothing. It's funny, and this is shout out to Toby Rowland, obviously the voice of the Sooners on the radio. He noted it when I look back and look at some of the highlights with his broadcast over it. It's amazing, and obviously you guys haven't covered the team, and especially Tom wouldn't have an appreciation for it, but how many times a team has had a 2-point conversion in Norman late in the game,
they don't get
to tie or take the lead and not come through with it? It's actually getting weird. Like in 2015 TCU, 2018 Bellum, 2019 Iowa State, and there may be one more. Like, it's actually gotten crazy how many times through all those bad defenses that there was a 2-point conversion at the end of the game to either win it or tie it for the opponent, and Oklahoma buckles down and gets the stop. It's crazy. It's like, it's funny.
They always
noted it, and it's like that has happened a weirdly high number of times. Every time in Norman too, always at home.
And they always try to throw it, don't they? I don't think it's been one where they just try to run it. It's like every time they try to throw it on the outside.
Yeah, no, they're all throws. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Picture in my brain. You're right. Yeah, it's weird. It's kind of a funny little thing. But yeah, defensively, some really good things. I mean, UCF had that great rush attack. They did nothing. So I think a lot to like. He didn't force a turnover in this game, which is what they've been doing. I think I saw the stat. This is the first time that Brent Venables got a win without a turnover since being at OU, which is, I don't know. I mean, maybe kind of a nice thing if you want to spin it that way. But they overcame that.
They still lead the nation in turnover margin, though.
That's kind of wild. Yeah. And you're right, Tom. You mentioned earlier that the interception from Gabriel, I wouldn't really put on him. Kind of an unlucky play. Yeah. Good play by UCF, that defender who made that play on the ricochet, too.
Yeah. But, I mean, Oklahoma did force a fumble. Ball just went out.
Clean strip, yeah. But, yeah, overall, I mean, good stuff in the defense. I don't have a lot much more to add. I mean, it was, pretty well. Got the stop you need to at the end. Some busts that you're not happy with, but overall continue to look good. We were remiss, too. I should have mentioned earlier, but the Gavin Sawchuk touchdown to not ice the game, but to put him up by 8 late, objectively one of the most hilarious plays, because he's running down the middle of the field, looking at the sideline, not sure if he should score or not, which he absolutely should. It was like over 3 minutes left.
Yeah.
And he's checking with the sideline, like, do I score? And he had so much space that he was able to just run around, just having a without words, a nonverbal conversation just with Venables in the sideline of looking at him in the eyes. I would love to know, did he talk after the game? I'm with the
coach. Yeah. I'm actually going to have something about this on the site this afternoon. But he was saying that he was looking back to the sideline, obviously just trying to see, is anybody telling him to get down or, just go score. The first person that he makes eye contact with is offensive graduate assistant Tanner Schaefer, who's just jumping up and down, celebrating ball. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I should probably run this in then." But I mean, he talked about it. He's like, "Look, you don't want to make the selfish play. Just kind of being aware of how much time's left on the clock. Obviously, there was way too much time for him to kind of take the slide there and punch it in afterward. But I mean, you like to see that kind of unselfishness, that mentality, at least from him, and just kind of the awareness of, hey, do I need to do this or do I not? But it is, like you said, legitimately hilarious that he had that much time to be able to cognizantly get beyond the defense and then look back to the sideline. He said he's never really had
brain churning while he's running.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. I give him credit just for thinking about it in the moment, just thinking about, let me be a team player here. Let me look back. But obviously, you want to score. I give him credit just for thinking about the clock. And it came close to where a UCF player was almost going to try to poke the ball out because he was coming up on him as he was getting into the end zone. So
I've been asked a couple times if I thought UCF was allowing them to score. I don't think so. I think that they were still playing defense there, even trying to chase down Sawchuk after he was not sure.
Exactly.
So Yeah, I've been asked it a couple times. I don't believe so. I think UCF was still playing defense there. Although not the worst thing for the Knights because they had time the other way, and obviously it worked out for them. They almost had a chance to – they did have a chance to tie the game. But, yeah, you got to go ahead and score that. There's too much time. Because if you lay down, they still had timeouts, I believe. Like, you're getting into a hairy spot because if you don't eventually score, now you're feeling really silly. So, yeah, you're the right move to go ahead and punch that in. That was a hilarious play. Also, Peyton Bowen's sack. I want to make sure I don't have anything to add other than just good play.
Acknowledging it,
Coming up the edge and just lit up Plumlee.
We talked to him afterwards. That was the first sack he's ever got. Yeah, that was the first sack he ever got.
He didn't have any in high school either?
He didn't have any in high school. Yeah, that was surprising when I was talking.
That's amazing.
Like, what in the world?
That's amazing.
So that's his first college sack, first tackle for loss in college. Things like that. Good milestone for him.
I mean, he just completely unblocked, just absolutely smoked him. And he only played a few snaps in this game.
Yeah, he only played 5 snaps.
Yeah.
But of course, he plays 5 snaps and he finds a way to make at least one huge play.
Well, he had a tackle.
It was a third down sack too. So
yeah, he's just a baller. Yeah. Just a baller. It's one of those guys. Put him out there enough, he's going to do something big for you.
He said that was the first time that they've run that blitz package too. So like when they practiced it in practice, he was expecting to be the guy that got picked up, and the other guy was supposed to get through. He was like, when he came around the edge, he was like, "Oh, it's me." So I'm just
snap! There's nobody stopping me. It's funny. I said to James in the recap, it felt so much like Trey Brown in the Big 12 championship game against Sam Ellinger, coming off the edge and just lighting him up.
Yeah.
And then literally that happened, and they played it on the board as part of like a Jim Ross like Big 12 memories thing. And I was like, was that planned? Did they have that ready? Like the timing of that was incredible.
Yeah, the search bar up there.
Sooner Vision folks for having that ready.
The search bar up there must be crazy. Yeah, let's see what's going on with that.
Yeah. But yeah, before we wrap up, obviously, kicking situation is not good. Zach Schmidt missed 2 more in this game. We talked about it a couple times this year. Just simply put, it's not. It's just not reliable at all. In a big spot, if the Oklahoma is at the end of a game right now and needs a kick to tie or win the game, not a single OU fan on earth is going to feel confident from really any distance. He had a big miss against Texas that nobody's talked about because they won the game, but that miss could have cost them in that game.
He's missed 4 of his last 9 attempts.
It's kind of forgotten because the heroics of Gabriel and Nick Anderson, they won the game. But he had brutal misses last year. And now so far this year, the 2 close games they've had, he's had really costly misses. They've been able to win in spite of it. It's a problem, guys. Obviously, I mean, it's going to, I'm not going to say it will bite OU at some point, but it very well might. Obviously, if they keep playing close games, it's not good. I think you got to try somebody else here pretty soon.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, Brent Venables after the game was asked about this, and he's said he still has great confidence in Zach Schmidt. Mm-hmm. And I mean, look,
but you can't give an honest answer right there. He can't give it. He can't.
Yeah, I mean, whether you stick with him or whether you kind of open up the competition in practice, and maybe we see Gavin Marshall get an opportunity at some point. Publicly, you have to say that you have confidence in it, especially for that position at kicker, where it's such a mental position.
Yep.
And even before the season, you were over there, Josh, when Zach Schmidt was talking to us that one day in fall camp. It's like, yeah, he talked about those struggles of last season, the experience, the ups and downs, and just kind of how to manage it, and the importance of, hey, not letting one kick have an effect on the next kick, being able to flush it out, not, missing the same quick kick twice in essence. Mm-hmm. And he seemed to be in a good headspace coming into the season, but the struggles are still there. Now, I don't want to knock him completely for the Texas one, because I've had a lot of people say that a headwind just came in right before that kick and kind of
looked weird.
That kick just died. But 2 makeable misses this week, from 38 and 43 yards. He made the chip shot right before halftime to tie it at 17-17. But in a game that you win by 2 points, missing 2 field goals and leaving points on the board when you're in the red zone is just not something that you can get away with for too long. So I'm curious to see whether they stick with Schmidt like Venables said, or whether some other guys, Gavin Marshall or whoever, starts to get a look.
He was really close on the second one too. I mean, I think when we looked at him on the field, he thought it went.
I thought he made it.
Yeah, because of where it went right over the goal, the top of the goal post or whatever it is.
Yeah, it was really close.
It was really close. I mean, have that. But to have him come back and make that field goal before the half, I mean, that's the biggest field goal of the game when you think about it too, because UCF gets that taunting call, so OU gets better field position after the kick return, and they were able to get down the field and kick that field goal just before the half, and they win by 2 points. I mean, so that field goal was big. I mean,
it is kind of funny though. Like Gus Malzahn, I went to his press conference after the game, and he said the same things. Like, we're kicking off from our own 20-yard line, and they get better field position. Mm-hmm. Oklahoma didn't get that much better field position to start that drive, though. They started at the 26-yard line. So they netted out 6 yards, like if you're looking at it as a touchback or something. But still, the James points, like that's an important field goal. The fact that Oklahoma was able to still get down the field and kick that as time expired in the half, like, going in 17-17 is a lot better than going down 17-14 after giving up that long touchdown.
Yeah, that's something we didn't, those misses early, something we didn't really mention. We kind of danced around it, but Oklahoma really dominated the first quarter of this game, and we're leading 7-0 after the first quarter because it was twofold. They weren't finishing drives in the red zone and then settling for field goals that were then missed. You got great field position several times. I mean, 4 straight 3-and-outs to start this game.
UCF had 15 total yards in the first quarter. They didn't get a first down.
It doesn't even feel like it was that high.
They didn't get a first down until the final play of the first quarter.
Yeah, then, you got to be beating UCF by more than a touchdown at the end of the first quarter with those kind of numbers. And part of that is them finishing drives. The other part of that is Schmidt needs to bang those through. I mean, if it was 13-0, now that's a huge difference, but it feels a lot different.
No, you got the ball on their side of the field a couple of times because they had such terrible punts.
I think 3 of their first 4 drives. I think 18 of their 22 plays in the first quarter were on UCF's side of the 50. And to come away with only 7 points after all that is obviously disappointing. Mm-hmm. But again, kudos to Oklahoma's defense for coming out the way it did. Things kind of fell apart a little bit in the second quarter. I think UCF had close to 220 yards in the second quarter alone, which is legitimately almost double the yardage that Gus Malzahn's offense had the last time he went against Brent Venables in 2017 for a whole game. He had that the second quarter. So UCF obviously found something, and Oklahoma's defense, obviously a lot of that goes to the 86-yard touchdown pass, but there's definitely things to clean up. But as we said, some bright spots to be pretty pleased with too.
100%. So to kind of wrap up here, overall temperature check for you guys.
I was going to say one other thing on the special teams front. If we're obviously talking about Zach Schmidt and his struggles.
Yeah. Good
Shout out to Luke Elzinga. First game that he's really handled punting duties solo. Averaged 51.6 yards per punt.
Better. Yeah.
Which was I think top 5 in the nation this week. 45 net yards per punt, which was I want to say 15th or something in the country this week. So obviously, he did a lot better, put 4 of those inside the 20-yard line. So I think Oklahoma may have at least found a solution to its punting issues that it had earlier in the season. But yeah.
And Brent Venables shutting them out too. So, I mean, it shows they saw something. And he's kicking perfect spirals, right, Josh? You're on the field. You're seeing it.
Yeah. It felt like cool. When they brought him in, he would be the guy. I was kind of surprised when he wasn't. It was kind of a little more, not that Josh Plaster's not a viable option, but they kind of made that switch, and we'll see if they do the same for the kicker job on Saturday in Lawrence. So, kind of wrap up this game. Just overall, I guess, confidence meter after this. How shaken are you, if at all? I mean, I'll be totally honest, and I kind of articulated this a little bit in the recap. This game doesn't really bother me. This is going to happen, in my opinion, over the course of a college football season. Oklahoma, like Brent Venables said, made a lot of mistakes to get themselves beat in this game. In a lot of ways, they kind of kicked UCF's tail in a lot of portions of the game and just couldn't get away from them. It was kind of just one of those games. UCF was kind of just pesky and hanging around. And, I said this in the recap as well. Going back to Lincoln Riley, Bob Stoops, as far back as I can remember OU football, which is about the mid 2000s or so, Oklahoma has had games like this. They are 6-0, 7-0, 8-0, whatever it is. They're playing well. They're high in the rankings. Everything's going hunky-dory, and then they play a team that they shouldn't lose to, a Texas Tech or a Kansas State or a Colorado or whatever the heck it is, and they get in a dogfight and they lose. And that's what this game felt like, except for they didn't lose it. They found a way to get through it. So I'm not really rattled. I still think Oklahoma's really good. Now you got to bounce back. This was an ugly game, but it's going to happen. Like James articulated earlier, Washington almost lost to Arizona State. UNC did lose to Virginia. I mean, these kind of things happen in college football. You're going to have ugly weeks. You got to find a way to get through them. They did. Is that kind of how you guys feel? Or are you guys more concerned that, hey, there were some alarming things in this game and Sooners may be in trouble of stumbling here before it's all said and done?
I'm not too concerned, kind of to your point. I mean, you have to win ugly sometimes, especially when you look at the top 25 scoreboard across the country and you see, like you said, Texas barely escaped against Houston.
Yeah, right. We didn't even mention that. Yeah.
You know, Washington had no business winning that game against Arizona State. Florida State struggled for the first half against Duke before pulling away there. You know,
Duke's quarterback got hurt.
Had a callback against Tennessee. I mean, obviously that's a ranked on ranked team, ranked on ranked game too. UNC you mentioned, but you know sometimes you just have to find ways to win these ugly games because it's not always going to be pretty. It's not always going to go exactly as planned, but you still have to handle business. And Oklahoma did that. I'm curious to see if a game like this gets Gavin Sawchuk going, and maybe they start to figure out some things with the run game, but. You know, I'm not discouraged by this performance.
Sure. Yeah. And Oklahoma, you know, has the luxury right now of not needing to worry about style points because they've got the 0 in the loss column. You know, I mean, if Oklahoma, they can win these last 6 games, including the baseball championship game, by 1 point and look really hideous every single time, and they're going to be in the playoff at the end because they're Oklahoma and they're, a blue blood and a Power 5 team. If they're undefeated, they'll be there. So, you have the the luxury and the advantage of not having to worry about that right now because you won that Texas game. So you have that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Before we even went on yesterday after our instant recap, I was like, I was telling Josh, like, yeah, they won, but they didn't get any style points there. And he was like, well, they don't even need it. Like, it's just like, you just keep winning.
You really don't.
It makes perfect sense. I mean, you just keep winning. There's no way OU doesn't get in. They went all the way out and won the Big 12 championship. I mean, they might even be 1 or 2, in the country. You look at that because some of these teams are going to have some very tough challenges the rest of the way as well. So, OU just needs to keep it up from here on out. And as we said, they're going to be favored in a lot of the games, or the rest of the way actually. And so they should just
definitely regular season.
Regular season. So just keep that up, and they should be fine
for sure. So as we look ahead, Kansas this week on the road, the Sunflower State up there, David Booth Memorial Stadium. This was a game that when we, during the bye week with Colin and the 3 of us kind of looked at, like, what's the toughest game left? This is kind of the one that a lot of people said, probably either this or maybe Bedlam. Oklahoma State's playing well right now. BYU could be tricky too. Whatever. This game is certainly up there. We don't know if Jalen Daniels is going to play, their star quarterback. I don't think so. I'm assuming he's not. But they have a quality backup
today.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Lance Leipold said today he's doubtful. But they have a quality backup. Jason Bean is a solid backup. He's played Oklahoma tough a couple of times already. Obviously, last year in Norman, put up some good numbers. The Sooners won that game, but Jason Bean played well. Early thoughts. Obviously, we'll break down the game in full and preview it on Thursday. But I guess initial thoughts here. I mean, the Jayhawks have got players, and they play well. That crowd's going to be jumping. It's a big noon kickoff there on Fox, another early game, but the crowd will be ready for it. Their defense is not particularly great, but their offense has got guys. What's the thoughts here going into this game and in terms of Oklahoma danger level for Oklahoma to stumble this weekend up there in Lawrence?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Jalen Daniels' availability changes everything. I mean, he was the Big 12 preseason Offensive Player of the Year for a reason. But if he can't go, I mean, Jason Bean's shown that he's a capable quarterback, has had some big games so far for them. I think having UCF the week before that Kansas game is going to be a benefit to Oklahoma, just because listen to Brent Venables after the game, he said, UCF, Kansas, kind of similar offensively in that they use a lot of pre-snap eye candy. They like to try to be a little deceptive in what they do. So, I mean, good early test for Oklahoma to prepare them for that Kansas game, Kansas offense. I still think, there's a reason Oklahoma's a 10-point favorite going into this game, even on the road. I'd expect the Sooners to play a better game than they did against UCF. We'll see how that plays out and what that looks like. But again, I think they're going to handle business.
Yeah, I mean, I think OU's going to win, either way. But I like to see, if Jalen Daniels is going to play for Kansas, is Tawee Walker going to play for OU, things like that. Seeing who's all going to be there. But I think OU's going to win the game either way. Now it just depends on if it's going to be close or not. Depending on if those guys are playing or not. That's where it's going to be at for me. So when we check back in on Thursday, I think we'll have a better idea of what's going to happen, and we'll have a better prediction this time around. So that's where I'm at right now in the situation.
Yeah, Oklahoma didn't cover the spread this weekend for the first time this year. Oklahoma and Penn State were the only two teams that had covered the spread in every game, and they both did not this weekend. So that's no longer the case. We'll see if they get back on track.
And Oklahoma lost the coin toss for the first time this season.
Yeah, we got to mention
maybe that's the key.
They still got the result they usually want, though. They still were kicked off first, got the ball coming out at halftime. So
true. Yeah, I mean, if I was a coach, there'd be probably certain situations where I maybe take the ball, but I'm kicking to start like 99% of the time. You just getting the ball for the second half just feels so good. I'm kicking almost every time.
I think when OU had those historical offenses, that was the time you always take the ball, just because you want to get the best unit out there first and get ahead and play with a lead.
I was going to say, I think it says a lot about how Brent Venables and Ted Roof feel about that defense, that they're willing to trust them to go out there and set the tone early against these teams. I don't know what they did, what their preference was last year, but I don't know if you would have wanted to put that defense out there first.
Just rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
Just rip the Band-Aid off. Yeah, going to be a fun finish of the season in the Big 12, too. It is really jammed up. After Oklahoma, there are a lot of teams that only have one loss, and then a few more that have two. It's not, we talked about it after the Texas game. It felt like a borderline given that OU Texas would play again. I don't know if that's really the case anymore. Texas had a close call with Houston. Quinn Ewers is out for a few weeks. Now, Malik Murphy is another really good backup, but we may not see OU Texas again this year. For both teams, it's not going to be as easy to get there as I think we kind of thought.
Yeah.
After
I was going to say that.
The Texas after the Red River game.
Yeah.
So
that Bedlam game's looking a lot tougher.
Looks a lot tougher now.
If you had asked me a month ago, I would have said Oklahoma's going to beat OSU by 30 plus easily, and now they're
ask you after that South Alabama game.
Yeah, exactly. They've turned the corner, and that we know that's going to be a loony bin next week.
They figured out the quarterback situation.
They bumped it. They gave us the old 6-day window, which is always disgusting. So we don't know. It's worse when it's a further road trip for us. Selfishly, it's obviously just down the road, but still annoying. So we'll have to wait to see if that'll be a night game or not. But either way, the Boone Pickens faithful will be on fire for that game. So it's going to be a fun finish. Looking forward to this weekend. We'll be back on Thursday to preview the Kansas game. Colin Kenny will also hop in the show. Hey, the latest recruiting news. Sooners have been active. Got a commit over the weekend, Devin Jordan. We'll talk about that some more on Thursday, and also some of the other guys that Oklahoma is hot on the trail of. So we'll look forward to that on Thursday. That's it for now. For Tom Green, James D. Jackson, I'm Josh Callaway. We'll catch you guys Thursday for the next edition of the Sooners Illustrated podcast.
See you.